All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. And I'm happy to welcome back friend of the show, the Bulwarks, Will Saletan. Will, good to see you, man.
You too, Matt.
A lot to talk about today, but I feel like we have to start with the Jeffrey Epstein story just because this has been going on now for over a week. I do think it's unique in the sense that it is lingering. Donald Trump can't change the subject from it. And it does seem to be splitting the MAGA influencers, at least, if not the base, which is rare. What do you make of this, Will Saletan?
Well, okay, first of all, I am a total outsider to MAGA. I don't understand MAGA. I don't understand. We have a guy at the Bulwark, Will Sommer, who covers MAGA and the online right. And he just wrote a thing, a taxonomy of like the 5 MAGA camps and how they're all responding to the Epstein story. I don't fathom any of them. I don't understand, why there's one, much less 5. And the other problem that I have with this story is that I am one of those liberals who I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I don't believe, in JFK conspiracy theories. Anytime people talk about secret files, the moon landing, I'm like, you people are just crackers. So I'm an Occam's razor guy. And the Occam's razor, the simplest explanation for me of what's going on is that Trump and his people demagogued the Epstein files. They played all the Pizzagate QAnon people. And they invented this conspiracy theory. Then they got in. Now they're in power, and they had to investigate. And they found out there's no client list of the famous people who have like had sex with kids under Jeffrey Epstein's watch. There's no videos of these people. So they came out and said that. Pam Bondi comes out and says, "Sorry, we got nothing here." And my default theory is that's the truth. That's the truth. There's nothing here. And as a liberal, I got to say, I feel uncomfortable hyping this story with, creating the impression that there's something there that there really isn't. And meanwhile, on the other hand, I got colleagues at the Bulwark who are former Republican operatives like Tim Miller and Sarah Longwell. And Sarah's point of view on the Epstein story is, you moron, this is the greatest story ever. This is like going to turn the MAGA base against Trump. And she's in there with both hands playing on the suspicion that these people have of that something is being covered up. That's the argument. Maybe something is being covered up. So that's my suspicion. That's my point of view. But Matt, what's yours?
Well, look, I get, I appreciate why a former political operative would want to hype this story and, troll and do some psyops. And, they say don't interfere with your opponent when he's committing suicide, but maybe you could tighten the noose and hand him an anvil, right? And so I get the temptation to want to do that if you're not a Trump fan. But look, I don't know what a conspiracy theory is, right? I do think that there's a conspiracy theory where people are trying to make Epstein into this larger like Pizzagate story, that it's all about Tom Hanks and elites. And that is a conspiracy theory, right? But what we do know is that Epstein was a sex trafficker. And it seems implausible to me that it was just Epstein and his co-conspirator, Maxwell, who were the only two involved. Does that mean it was a conspiracy? I guess more than two people keeping something a secret. And it also seems weird to me or suspicious to me that Epstein would commit suicide while on suicide watch and that there'd be a video, but there happens to be a minute missing from that video. So I don't know where that puts me. Am I a conspiracy theorist? Maybe.
Well, so, okay, let's start with the minute thing, the missing minute. So I watched Pam Bondi explain this. She says every night there's 1 minute missing from the video because of the way the system was set up. Like they like, and there's like an adjustment or something, and it happens every night. So it's not like unique to this. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm incredulous at conspiracy theories. But when even Pam Bondi, who I don't otherwise like, she says this, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like the simplest explanation. Also, it's a checkable thing. We can check whether whether there was a minute missing on other nights. And the idea that because there's 1 minute missing, something must have happened right then. That was, I just don't believe it.
I'm not even sure that that this video shows Epstein's cell and that you could see in it. Right. So the missing minute, though, seems to me to be like Nixonian And it's you know, so and again, I get and I respect the fact that you're sort of your operating theory is Occam's razor, and I think generally that is a safer assumption, or what I don't know what the principle is that never attribute to
uh, no,
nefariousness that which can be
yeah.
explained by incompetence, or something like that. But it's also Pam Bondi. She went on TV and said the client list, paraphrasing, but she said the client list was on her desk.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files.
She didn't.
She did.
She did not say that. So this is again. I feel guilty, and I feel reverse guilty. I don't know how to describe this, Matt, for not pursuing a story. I mean, I'm doing what I think is right, not what is advantageous, and maybe that's foolish. But what I think is right is there is no cover up. There is no file. There's no secret. There's a file, but there's no client list. But
well, they asked her about the client list, and she says it's on my desk being reviewed.
Right. So what I think is, I mean, what Bondi's statement in the Oval Office when she was explaining this was, when I said it's on my desk.
In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
I mean, first of all, you have to watch the sequence. John Roberts is interviewing her.
I've seen
and
it.
Says,
I've seen
right.
it.
Yeah. So he says, but just for people who've only read about it or heard about it, I would recommend that they watch it.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now.
He's talking about the Epstein files. She says it's on my desk to be reviewed. She said, and as she's explaining this, when I said it, I meant the file, the case is on, not like the list is the client list. So because it's an ambiguous
client list, she said it is on my desk.
Right, but it's not like.
It depends on what your definition of is. It's Clintonian. We've been Nixonian.
On the definition of it.
Been Clinton. But look, I'm not saying that you should be running up the score here and taking advantage of these poor people, but I do think you are attributing a whole lot of grace to people like Pam Bondi that I don't think have quite earned that benefit of the doubt based on their past performance.
Okay, that's probably. Look, I think these people are liars in 100 ways. I'm just persuaded by the explanation. And I got to say, Matt, the other thing is Trump with the Truth Social post with the like, and also not just what he wrote, but what he said. He's constantly like saying, "Hey, people, please stop talking about this." Matt, I can't think of a better way to stoke this fire than for the president, who has been accused by his own buddy, Elon, former buddy. I don't know how do we talk about them? Former BFFs?
BFF.
Yes.
I don't know.
So Elon's already planted the Trump is in the files. You can't recover from that. I mean, you can't. And so Trump's response is, there's nothing to see here. We're not going to put it out. People, stop talking about it. Can I just ask the parents out there, if your kids bring something up and you're like, we don't talk about that in this house, stop talking about that. You can't possibly do more to plant the curiosity and the determination in your kids' heads than to tell them, we're not going to talk about this. It's forbidden, which is essentially what Trump has said.
It's the Streisand effect, right? Or something akin to that.
Oh, right. Is that the Streisand? I keep getting confused. There's Dunning-Kruger, Streisand, Peter Prince. What's the one about the malice and incompetence? That's Hanlon's razor, I think, isn't it?
I don't know, but we've covered them all.
Okay, or Heinlein's razor.
In the first 7 minutes, we've hit all of these rules and maxims, some of which I don't know the name of. But what's the one that says you should delete the first paragraph and start with the third paragraph? Chekhov's razor. Maybe we should just delete this and start with the next topic.
Wait, I got to say one more thing about this. Okay. I've been watching Trump and the Trump movement for a decade, and I keep thinking there's going to be some issue where Trump is such an apostate on so many issues that used to be serious for Republicans.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, what is the issue where his base is going to leave him? Is it going to be economics, where, he's basically imposing massive taxes on people through tariffs? No, they're still with him. Is it going to be foreign policy, where he abandons America's role in the world, says, he went soft on Putin? No, not that. And I'm going to be shocked, but maybe I shouldn't be shocked, if it turns out that the one thing that Donald Trump cannot do that will absolutely turn his base against him is to reject a conspiracy theory, one that I think is false. But that seems to be the answer.
No, it's a point I've been harping on too. Stormy Daniels didn't offend evangelicals, but this is like the line in the sand. You can't try to dispel this client list. This is the one thing that they will not tolerate. You can start a Capitol riot. Everybody's okay with that. You could be pro-Russia, or conversely, you can bomb Iran. Everyone's going to be fine. Right. But now you've gone too far. And he said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose any voters. He wasn't wrong. But this may be the one thing he can't do.
So shooters are okay, but groomers are out, and that's where he's crossed the line.
I think you put it very well. Well, let's go to a related story, which is another example, I think, of Trump doing something unexpected, which is he's supporting Ukraine. Okay, so maybe it's not a great segue, but it's interesting to me, right? I mean, I found myself, and I know not everyone agrees, like probably people on the left don't agree with me, and people on the right don't agree with me, but I'm one of those I'm guessing Bill Kristol did agree with me that, like, if we could take out Iran's nuclear ambitions, and we still don't know if that was possible, but if we did that, that's a net positive in my book. And he's taken a roundabout way to get there, but now suddenly Donald Trump is supporting Ukraine. In fact, I think giving them weapons that would reach Moscow, which seems to be like an escalate. Everyone was so worried that Joe Biden was going to escalate things, right? And now Trump, I guess, is saying, hold my beer. But what are we to make of this turn of events?
So I think this is one of the most impressive.
Oh, you know what the segue was, Will? That it could also offend the base. Because there's a lot of MAGA people who don't want to support Ukraine. That's the transition that I never got to. I apologize.
Right. All right. Now I'm going to think of two representatives of your point here, Pete Hegseth and JD Vance. So both of these guys are sitting on the couch yesterday as Trump is announcing. Trump's sitting next to Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, and he announces this change in U.S. policy. Donald Trump, who heretofore was basically saying, I don't want to have anything to do with Ukraine, not going to send him any weapons. Putin can, do whatever he wants, and I'll bitch about it, but I'm not going to impose any sanctions. All of a sudden now, I'm going to rearm Ukraine through NATO, and I'm going to, if Putin doesn't agree to, doesn't settle this whole thing in 50 days, I'm going to impose massive sanctions, secondary sanctions on people who do business with Russia. I'm really going to clamp down on them. And it's this big turnaround. And here's JD Vance and Hegseth sitting on the couch, who are basically isolationists. Well, I'll put it, Vance, definitely. And Vance didn't want anything to do with this kind of thing. Vance, as I recall, was against the bombing of Iran too. So they gritted their teeth, and they're supporting Trump as he's doing this. What's fascinating to me is how Trump came to this, because he's got the hawks, people like you, except they're inside the tent. They've been working on him this whole time. The Marco Rubios, the Lindsey Grahams, and Rutte himself, who I think is going to end up being a hero of this whole operation. And those guys have been massaging Trump's ego and working him around to this position. And they went and coached, Lindsey Graham goes over and coaches Zelensky on how to be nicer to Trump. Look, you've got to flatter Trump. You got to make him feel like his ego is invested in this. They've managed to turn him against Putin by the idea, not that Putin has been killing people, which is bad enough, but that Putin is somehow like not taking Trump seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Trump has these conversations with Putin. They have these lovely phone calls, and then Putin goes and bombs Kyiv.
And Melania pointed that out to him.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
Do you believe the Melania story?
I do, because it's an admission against interest, don't you think?
I guess it could be, although it's like
Amy Carter advising her dad on nuclear proliferation.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
Right. Right. And Trump has used Melania before. He's used her as this story about the press, the cameras turned away from me, and Melania is the one who told me. He's got these Melania.
I guess the only implausible thing is that Melania, you'd have to assume that Melania is living at the White House with Trump and is speaking on speaking terms with him. So
Right. Maybe all these Melania stories are just about that, putting out the idea that
about
Melania,
his girlfriend in Canada.
we do. Yeah, that's so true. My girlfriend in Washington. So anyway, there has been this amazing inside operation to turn Trump against Putin. And it's done by people. It's the right thing. It's done in the wrong way, because you shouldn't have to convince the president of the United States to stand with the democracy against the invading autocracy that's threatening Europe. That it shouldn't be necessary, but they've done it. And do you remember, Matt? This is like a couple of weeks ago. Trump posted on Truth Social a text that he got from Mark Rutte. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
The text is like, I felt like they needed to get a room. I mean, like, Mark Rutte was like, Donald, you are the greatest human being in the history of the world, and you're doing so many wonderful things for NATO and society and the civilization. You are saving so. And Trump posts this totally obsequious text on Truth Social, so you can see inside the operation. So Rutte and the hawks around Trump have like worked him around to this position. And it's enormously consequential. Like, they figured out Trump doesn't want to pay for anything. Fine. The United States won't spend a dime on this. We're going to sell the weapons, and the Europeans are going to pay for it. But it's crucial because the Europeans don't have the defense industrial base to support Ukraine in time to save Ukraine. So that's fine. The Americans have it. We'll pay the Americans for it. And Trump is going along with this. I think it's ingenious. I think it's world historical. So good for all these guys who are, Matt, I'm looking for, what is the polite word for doing something? They're massaging Trump. That's what they're doing.
It's called Lewis's Law.
What is it?
Lewis's razor. I don't know. We'll come up with a term, but yes.
Okay.
There's something.
Yeah. So what do you think of this whole turnabout?
It is, again, I mean, another comparison to the previous Epstein story. Like, what a long time coming. I mean, Donald Trump has been so pro-Putin, so pro-Russia, and in a way that was so weird that it made people think he must be, compromised. And it's taken him a decade or more to come around. And look, you're right. I mean, in a perfect world, or even just a normal world, whoever becomes president of the United States would not need to be like manipulated into taking an obviously correct position. But, this is an argument, Will, for people doing what Lindsey Graham did or what Marco Rubio did as opposed to what I did. There was the argument, it's like, we got to stay in the room. We have to have relevance. We have to have influence. And a lot of us said, good luck with that. But maybe sometimes it pays off. And this might be one of those occasions. Like, if you're in Ukraine and you were struggling for your survival and you were desperate for weapons to stay alive and to fend off this Russian invasion, maybe we want Rubio on that wall. Maybe we need him on that wall or in that room.
It's a really good moral question and political. I feel like, I don't know if did you read Max Weber in college Max Weber is great on this stuff.
I was so ignorant, I called him Max Weber. So no,
that was a great bowler. I think Dick Weber. Also, amazing grills, really amazing grills. But Max Weber was I read him along with all these like big theorists, and Max Weber's like, no, politics is very practical. You have to do things that don't sometimes feel wrong. You have to break some eggs, to do the big right thing, and that's true. And in real political experience, you have to do that. I wrote a long series about Lindsey Graham, and I described this trajectory in which he would rationalize everything Trump did. And what people said, Lindsey Graham just sold out. He didn't really believe in anything, and that's not true. Lindsey Graham's always been, for example, a hawk, and he absolutely wanted to defend Ukraine. And in my trajectory, there was a point when I thought Lindsey Graham was selling out Ukraine, and I thought that's how it ends. That's how the story of personal decay ends. You sell out the cause for which you sold out everything else. But what's happened now says to me, no, actually, he held on to that, and he is using what influence he has to help turn Trump around. He's not the only one. I mean, Rubio is probably very important in this. Ruta, I think, is absolutely crucial in this whole process. But you could see Volodymyr Zelensky. He went into the White House in February, end of February, and he does the wrong thing. I mean, he does the right thing morally, but the wrong thing politically, which is to say, we need security guarantees. We're dealing with Putin, a guy who violates security agreements all the time. And Trump's like, no, you're ungrateful, and we're not going to give you that. By the way, we want all your minerals. And Zelensky's like, he's like arguing with us morally. And after that, Graham and Blumenthal and these other guys go to Ukraine, and they like talk to Zelensky. And Zelensky, then there's like the thing in the Vatican where I think they worked on Zelensky and got him to understand you can't talk to Trump like he's a normal American president. He's not, right? You talk to Trump the way you would talk to Erdogan or some other, dictator. Like he's not going to do the right thing for moral reasons. You're going to have to figure out some other argument. And that's what they've done. They've gotten Trump around to the idea that Putin, who he thought was his friend, is personally insulting him by telling him he's going to make peace and then bombing Ukraine.
And remember, and also wear a suit is the other advice I have for Zelensky, apparently.
Right.
No, but remember, Tucker Carlson lobbied, and I think Don Jr. maybe too, but Tucker Carlson lobbied hard for JD Vance to be Trump's running mate. And the reason was he feared that if Rubio was the running mate, that this would happen, what's happening now would happen. So I don't think it was an unfounded fear that Tucker had to try to keep out these Reagan internationalists, or he might even say neocons, because actually they are dangerous if you have this isolationist America first, I'm using scare quotes, worldview.
Yeah. And Vance just sat there. He sat there and he wasn't going to. And I would contrast the two scenes. So there's these two Oval Office meetings, the one with Zelensky at the end of February, in which JD Vance gets right in the middle of it and says, he says to Zelensky, not once in this meeting have you said that you're grateful for it. And I mean, Zelensky, meanwhile, has said this 100 times, how grateful he is for American support. But Vance felt like he could absolutely go, that Zelensky was vulnerable and he could go at him. But then fast forward to this week, here's Vance sitting on the couch, and the guy in the chair is not Zelensky, it's Mark Rutte. And Rutte has been giving Trump the tongue bath for months. And Trump has got it in his head, Rutte is my best friend. Rutte loves me. Rutte praises everything Trump does. And Vance did not go after Rutte. He couldn't. And that's the difference between the two approaches. And so a part of me is like, how can Mark Rutte support Trump? I almost don't want to say this stuff out loud, because not that Trump or his people pay any attention to what I say, but like, I don't want to put them in the position of exposing how obviously insincere I believe this whole operation was.
On one hand, it's pathetic to watch. On the other hand, a man never stands so tall as when he stoops to kiss an ass. And I guess if you're kissing that ass for the right reasons, to protect your country, then you do what you got to do. So, no judgment on Zelensky. Donald Trump famously said that he would end the Russia-Ukraine war in a day. That hasn't happened. But that's not the only thing he said he would end. I think prices were going to come down immediately and inflation was going to end. Will Saletan. I haven't checked lately, but I don't think either of those two things have happened.
No, and we just had the inflation report out that prices are going up. Inflation has increased. This is after Trump said the first few months of Trump's administration, he comes in, he threatens the tariffs. He has the big announcement, I'm going to tariff everybody. And then the next numbers that came out were fine. We're fine. And so Trump had the illusion prices are not going up, inflation's not going up. I was right about, because Trump's got this crazy theory that like the depression had nothing to do with tariffs, and tariffs are great, and tariffs are the McKinley era was the best era ever, and we were going to fund the whole government. So he's got this bonkers economic theory, and for a month or two, it seemed to hold up. And now we're starting to see the first signs of the tariffs biting, and we haven't even gotten to the hard part yet, because he kicked everything down the road 3 months, right? Saying he was going to do these trade deals. And now, I don't know if folks have been paying attention, but we're at the stage now where Trump's like, when I said trade deals, the best trade deal is I just send a letter. And when Trump says a letter, he means I just announce a crazy tariff number. And he's Matt, have you ever seen anything like this where he just like policy is announced, the president's personal Truth Social account is the vehicle in which these letters are posted announcing massive changes. By the way, tariffs were supposed to be under control of Congress. So here's like the president's personal, it's insane. So he announces these massive tariffs. And so we're just getting to the part where he's saying, I'm not going to actually cut any deals, maybe a couple. I'm going to just impose these tariffs. And all the prices are going to go up. They are going up. Prices on appliances going up. Prices on food going up. Gasoline going up. And we're just at the beginning of it. And I think, Matt, if there's any issue where Trump is finally going to pay a political price, it's going to be this one, because this is going to hit people in the wallet.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. What's yours?
Well, I agree. I think that people care deeply about that. And I think it's why he won the election. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I think the inflation was the number one reason Trump won the election. But this will be like a callback to where we started. I mean, do you know this guy, Andrew? I think his name's Andrew Schultz. He's like the kind of comedian, bro podcaster with the mustache who's become famous.
The stash guy. Okay, got it.
The stash guy was lamenting that Donald Trump has broken all of his promises. Prices haven't come down. He bombed, he hasn't gotten us out of forever wars. And he didn't release the Epstein client list. So these are all broken promises, and if you're part of the MAGA base, then, I mean, I'm happy, with that big caveat that assuming that we actually did set back the nuclear program in Iran, that he did what he did, but they're not. Andrew Schultz isn't. He was told no more forever wars, right? And I'm happy that that we're now supporting Ukraine against Russia, but Andrew Schultz probably is. I mean, at least. So if you're in the MAGA base, like, inflation's not coming down. Trump hasn't ended forever wars, and he hasn't delivered on the client list or the Epstein files. So things are not so great right now in Mudville, I guess.
Right. I mean, there are zero people who were going to vote for Donald Trump who are now going to vote Democratic over the Epstein files. I think. Then maybe they stay home. I think
that's the thing. Because these are apolitical people probably who would be turned off by that.
Yeah. The forever wars thing, I mean, what do these isolationists want? You can't have a cleaner operation than to like fly a bunch of B-2s into Iran, drop the bombs, leave, never even get seen, right? Much less shot at. Like, that's the cleanest operation. For any of them to think that's a quote forever war is like, what do you people want? Yeah. Like, that's insane.
They don't make a distinction, but in fairness to them, you can get sucked into these escalatory attacks and quagmire. Right. But I agree. I mean, this is more. I think it's more akin to the way Reagan operated. say like bombing Libya, for example, than it is akin to the way George W. Bush operated with the boots on the ground. Just maybe that's just me.
Right. So, but I just wanted to take those three things in order. So the Epstein thing, I don't think will cut so much, except so far as people stay home. It's not something that Democrats can campaign on because they also don't believe in the Epstein list. I think the mainstream Democrats, the forever wars thing, it hasn't turned into a quagmire, so can't run on that. But the tariffs is the big one. The money and we've already crossed the period, the early months of the Trump administration, when Trump has already claimed everything's going well because I took over from Biden. So Trump has already claimed ownership of what happens. So Matt, let me give you the pessimistic theory about how Trump is going to play out the tariff story, the inflation story. Inflation goes up, prices start going up. Why? Because the United States started a massive global trade war. Trump needs some other explanation. He's already said it's not Biden, right? He's already said that I own the economy. It's going to be Jerome Powell. It's going to be he didn't cut the rates. Trump's already saying this guy. If Trump were to actually get rid of Jerome Powell, he'd screw up. I think he would screw up his own alibi, which I think he's going to use from now through the midterms,
Right.
which is this is Jerome Powell's fault. He didn't cut interest rates. That's why inflation is increasing. I did everything right. And I don't think he's going to get away with that, but he's certainly going to try.
That makes sense. He needs to scapegoat somebody. I do want to circle back, not to beat a dead horse, but just to put a fine point on this. I agree with you when it comes to Joe Sixpack, swing voter, that the tariffs and inflation and the price of groceries are by far the most important thing. But I do think that there are some of these, like young men who maybe lean liberal, but they think wokeism went too far. They listen to these manosphere podcasters who are now, it's not just inflation. It's going to be Trump's not delivering on a lot of promises. So it may be more in the elite influencer, young men and podcast area, but I think that this is a trend now,
right?
Of disappointing part of his coalition. Which, by the way, I mean, it's not an original thought to me, but it was always a weird, unwieldy coalition anyway that encompassed like people who had mutually exclusive goals and ideas. And I think it's sort of coming to a head now.
Let me ask you this. It just occurred to me as you were talking. There were some people who in 2024 voted for Donald Trump on the trans issue. This was a major advertising spend by the Trump campaign. And I looked at this and I thought, this is a stupid little cultural issue of it's not actually affecting most people in their daily lives. There's very few of these trans athletes. Anyway, there are some people who voted on the basis of this little cultural issue. Do you think any of those people, do you think that the Epstein story might be useful in turning some of those people against Trump? Do you think that if Democrats were to say, and Donald Trump is still to this day covering up the Epstein files, that there are some people that are in play politically on that issue because they voted for Trump on trans, and this would trump that?
Interesting. I don't know. I think all the stars would really have to align for that. And I don't know that Democrats, there used to be a line that Republicans would tell ourselves, which is you can't get into a bidding war with Democrats over spending. You can never no, it turns out you can. Donald Trump proved you can win it. But Republicans used to tell ourselves, don't try to buy voters off because you can't outspend a Democrat. And I think there's a similar principle here, whereas Democrats can't out conspiracy theory Trump. And so if you try to play that culture war game, you got to commit to the bit because you can't dip your toes in that. What is the whole wrestle with a pig? You both get muddy and he enjoys it. That's kind of the problem I think Democrats have when it comes to if they want to play that game with Trump.
Right. And I come from Texas, where there used to be a Democratic Party that could do that. They were credible on that stuff. And that's not true anymore. The sort of Northeastern liberal Democratic Party, can't really play that game convincingly.
All right. Before I get you out of here, I know you've been writing about this interesting topic, how Donald Trump abroad is siding with dictators and authoritarians against their own country. So he's interfering in other countries in their, like, judicial process, court hearings, or whatever, taking sides with strongmen and meddling, I would argue, in other countries. But I didn't realize the extent of which this is happening. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so I just did this piece in the Bulwark this week. The one that everybody might have just seen is Trump announcing 50% tariff on Brazil. Why? What trade practice has Brazil engaged in that justifies? No. The letter from Trump says, I'm doing this because my friend Jair Bolsonaro, who basically did what Trump did in Brazil, like lost an election, tried to overthrow the result, right? He got impeached, he got thrown out. He's being prosecuted. And Trump announces a tariff on Brazil because he doesn't like that they're prosecuting Bolsonaro. And then you start looking around. This is not the first time Trump did it in Israel, where he said, the Israelis have to stop. Netanyahu's on trial. What for financial crimes? Maybe Netanyahu's innocent of the crimes, but he's on trial for them. And Trump says like the Brazilian judicial system, the Israeli system has to let go of Netanyahu. And Trump says, hey, we give you guys a lot of money and we're not going to stand for this. That's a pretty clear threat. Like, we're going to cut you off. Why? Not related to American interests any more than the tariffs on Brazil are. It's basically my friend, my fellow defendant. Remember, Trump has this whole theory about how he's been unjustly prosecuted by the evil weaponizers of lawfare people in the United States. And he's simply extending this to his friends abroad. Marine Le Pen got convicted of embezzlement. Right? What does Trump do? It berates the French judicial system. This is outrageous. I won't stand for it. And you start looking around the world, and he's just done this again and again and again. Remember, Putin was Trump's co-defendant in the Russia thing. Trump goes off about, my buddy Putin was like, he had to go through this with me. There's actually video of Trump in the Oval Office ranting about, Putin and I went through this together, and it was just so traumatic and awful. So, there's a long list of these, but that's just 4 examples.
I love it. Always worth reading. Will Saletan at the Bulwark. Anything else you want to plug, my friend?
No, I mean, I recommend everybody go read Will Sommer on all the MAGA camps and how they're dealing with Epstein, because Will is just terrific. And if you ever want to understand the MAGA world from the outside, he's got tremendous insights into it.
Yes, check that out. A taxonomy of Trumpers or something like that. I read it first thing this morning before I went on TV to talk about the issues. So thanks, Will Sommer, for doing my prep work for me. Will Saletan, always a pleasure, man. Thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Always a pleasure to be with you.